All right, now let's set up. We're working on finishing up or continuing our mouse Theremin interface. And we're making an interface that can send messages to our super collider patch so that we can control the sounds it makes with our mouse, thus having a mouse Theremin. So in this tutorial, we'll look at just setting up our Open Sound Control, or OSC. And as a reminder, OSC, Open Sound Control, is a lot like MIDI. It's just a protocol. It's a messaging system that works between applications, or sometimes between physical hardware controllers and applications, and is sent basically over the network. So even though I'm sending internally here between two programs on my same computer, it's very easily, by just changing the address, sent through the network to another computer somewhere halfway around the world or something like that. Now, I do believe a lot of applications incorporate open sound control, such as Logic, MaxMSP, processing, Super Collider. There's a thing called Touch OSC for the Android phones that sends OSC messages. So basically, it's just a messaging system. But we do have to set that up in processing. So the first thing we need to do is import the libraries. Now, these are contributed libraries, or external libraries. And I did show you in an earlier tutorial how to install them. And I'll just go over that really quick. You can import libraries here from Sketch, add library, and then you can find OSC. And you would install this OSC P5. Oops. Here, OSC P5. And your button, if you haven't installed it, would be, to install. Otherwise, it is in the Documents folder, in the Processing folder, and in the Processing folder in Libraries. And you can go to the website and download OSC P5 and just manually install it as well. Now, in order to import, I'll show you two possibilities. One way is to just actually type in import. So into your sketch, you have to import that library individually into each sketch. So we have to use the import command. And we're going to import OSC P5 .star. Oops. Okay, that'll import. And there's an additional library with OSC P5 called net P5 star. Okay, so that's one way to just manually type it in. Now you can also use this import library command under Sketch, import library, OSC P5, and that brings those both in just like I typed. Now, in order to set up, once we've imported that library, we have the full use of all its methods and functions and its commands. And there's a reference to it. If you go into your Documents folder, there is a reference to sort of HTML reference that you can look up and see how that works. Generally speaking, we have to set up two things. We have to set up our own sort of home OSC messenger machine, I guess. So we'll set up the variable OSC P5. That will be the type of variable. All right, and I'm just going to call it OSC. And then the second type of variable I need to set up is a destination. So I'm going to call it it's called a net address. And I'm going to call that SC for Super Collider. Okay. Now this is a good example of something that is declared out here on root and then set up in setup. So what we need to do is we need to initialize our various things. So the OSC P5 gets initialized like this, OSC, which if you see, it's just a variable name that I made up, but it once declared is this OSC P5 object. So OSC equals a new OSC P5 object, and then it has certain arguments. Its domain, I guess you would call it, or where its scope is, where it's limited to, and this is the sketch. So that's the entire sketch. Not to get too much into it now, but you might use a different thing here if you're using it, say, in your own class or something. So you would need to declare that domain. That's where it's going to look. That's where it's going to be used. Okay. And then the second thing that it looks for is your IP address. So we are at, oh no, I'm sorry. I think it knows your IP address because it's yourself. And then you're going to give it a port number. So 12321, I'm just going to make up one. Okay. So that will be my OSC machine, my little OSC bot that will allow me to send and receive OSC messages. Now I'm gonna initialize this net address, my destination, SC equals same kind of syntax equals new net address. And this one now takes an IP address in quotes. So 127.0.0.1 is the local host. That means I'm sending it somewhere on my own computer to myself. And then I need to put a port number. And in the case of SuperCollider, it is defaulted to 57120. All right. So then now allow me to send to this SC address. So I've imported, I've set them up, and that should be pretty much it. Let's just run it and see if I did it right. And there's a bunch of verbiage here talking about, the datagrams and stuff, and that pretty much means I was successful. All right, and so in the next tutorial, we'll move on to showing it how to actually use it. But these are just the basic steps here to getting the machines to send messages ready to go in processing.